Thank you very much, Qianni, for this introduction. My name is Zhou, and it's my great pleasure to be here and stand up with you to communicate on what we have done in the last couple of years. And especially, I'm going to talk about this project related to the recognition of mouse behaviors. This mouse is a real mouse, it's not this mouse. Okay? Okay, so if you ready for that, and then I'm going to start from the video. Okay? And this is a video, its name's Saving Millie, and this is a girl's name. The girl said, in fact, then she is she working for many years and also graduated from the University of America, and then she met one boy called John, and John is a New York journalist, okay, and both of them is later on they established a relationship and they become the couple, okay. So when they lived together, eventually they found Millie, the girls that suffer from the Parkinson disease. And the boys, John, is basically complete of his job and just stay home and look after his wife. So this is a drama, basically it's about the love story between these two people, and the husband spent a lot of time convincing these congressmen in order to invest a lot of money into this Parkinson disease and research and medicine development, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is a story of the 10 series, and I think the USA put on this drama in the 2005, and that's the only video I can find in the internet related to the Parkinson disease. Okay, so probably you can guess the result, and although the couple's relationship has been greatly enhanced, and the wife's disease still make the bad result, and the wife's health getting worse and worse. Okay, so some of you may ask me, is there anything to do with our talk today? Why, Joe, you mentioned this particular example to this audience? And if you still remember, when I talked about this movie, and I mentioned a couple times about Parkinson disease, right? So Parkinson disease has got something to do with this talk. Okay? And for those people who has engineering backgrounds, and I'm going to spend half of the time talking about Parkinson disease, and just to give you a little bit flavor of this and relevance, the knowledge. Okay. And first of all, we'd like to introduce what is a Parkinson disease. What's the first impression when this was appearing? Anyone can share with the others what is the Parkinson disease?
It is related to older people.
Okay.
Just when you can't remember things very well.
Okay.
Sort of.
Anything else?
It results in body
trembling.
Yep. Perfect answer. Okay. So Parkinson disease is a progressive neurological disease, and it's what we call a one-way disease. That means that this is a disease that can only go worse and worse. It can't be recovered. Okay, it's very disappointing, isn't it? And in the UK, we have 127,000 people suffer from the Parkinson disease. It's around 1 out of 500 people suffer from Parkinson's disease each year. Okay, in the whole world in 2013, around 53 million people suffer from the Parkinson's disease. As you know, in the UK we have around 65 million people. So almost one UK's population suffer from Parkinson's disease per year. On the right hand side, you recognize the face? Muhammad Ali. He's a Parkinson's disease sufferer. But his disease is a little bit complicated because after he's dead, the people made the operation and then they found he actually suffered from the two diseases. One is Parkinson's disease, and the other one is what we call a boxing disease, and the post-trauma. Okay. So this one is to show you how the Parkinson's disease develops. Everyone got a brain, and then in the brain we have what we call this cells, substances nigra, and then these cells produce what? Produce one material called dopamine. And the dopamine basically just is used to help make your brains glow and glow and glow, make yourself more intelligent. Okay, so if you don't produce enough dopamine, then usually either you become the dimension or you become useless to recognize something. Okay, so that's how the Parkinson's disease develops. And the next slide will show you, and if someone suffers from the Parkinson's disease, what's the symptoms for that patient. And obviously, someone has mentioned, and it's got the tremor, and then the whole body is shaking, and also it's becoming difficult to recognize something. Okay. And also, then on the screen, you can see this person when he starts walking. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, sir.
Sorry, no problem. And as you can see, the person cannot maintain a balance. Okay, and for example, when she starts walking, the left-hand side is becoming rigid, and the right-hand side is still normal, but the left-hand side is not normal. Okay, so this is one way we can pick up the Parkinson's disease. However, it's not always like that, because we know that some people's dimensions they got the same behaviors as that. Okay, and then you probably ask me how to treat the people of the Parkinson's disease. How are we going to treat those people? And as I said before, because this Parkinson's disease is a one-way disease, that means that you can get worse, you can't get recover. Then the people would say, oh, why not we just do something to help these Parkinson's disease people, to make them feel life is a little bit easier rather than difficult. Then the people would do this physical therapies and occupational therapy, basically just helping the people get rid of or maybe reduce the pain, but the people still suffer from Parkinson's disease, right? And the other way to treat the Parkinson's disease is apply the medication. And why I put this red highlight here is because later on we talk about this medication. And also this medication is related to our project, which is following in the machine learning and AI. Okay? And the final one is brain surgery. And people apply the brain surgery to the patient, and hopefully they can stimulate the production of the dopamine. They basically use the medication and the brain surgery to stimulate the production of the dopamine. However, none of these methods is completely make the people recovered. As I mentioned before, this disease is a one-way disease. Okay. So, you probably asked me, before I mentioned this medication, then how does the medication got something to do with the mouse appearing in the screen? And as we know, we're going to produce the medication, then we're going to ask the pharmacy company to produce this medicine, use for the medicine. Then what we want to do is we want to test the medicine before this medicine can be used by the patient, right? So we're going to ask something to stand up in front of us, and then we apply the medicine to that someone or something to test the usefulness of this medicine. We can't use the patient to do that experiment. Why? Because they're too expensive. And then someone will think, if I can't use patient to do that job, then what else I can use? Animal. And why we think about this mice? Mice too small, yeah. And also the mice can be produced and reproduced many per year. theoretically, each mouse can produce its offspring around 2,000. But in fact, then you can't see that result. Usually it's about 100 or 200. Small mice can be reproduced by a couple. Okay? And also these mice are small size and it's easy to be produced and no one cares about them. But this was too early because a lot of people and animal protectors stand outside the door and pinpoint to me. Okay. Okay, so we use the mouse to do this test or evaluation, things like that for medicine. And this one is just to show you the video. And this video is showing if we inject something to the mice and make the mice to suffer from the Parkinson disease, then how these mice perform in their daily life. And we put this mouse onto the cylinder to carry on this balanced test. And this is a Parkinson disease mouse, and after a few seconds it drops. A normal mouse doesn't like that, and it can maintain the balance for a while. And this is another mouse suffer from the Parkinson disease, and he feels scary, isn't it? And by this environment. But in fact, in a normal circumstance, a normal mouse shouldn't be like that. And the mouse would walk around the cage and for a number of minutes or hours and feel very impressed by the environment. In other words, through this investigation of the mouse behavior, we can recognize whether or not the mouse actually gets something changed before taking the medicine and after taking the medicine. This is the key. Okay? We use mouse to identify the behavior change in order to know whether or not the medicine we produce is useful or not. But today, this talk is about AI and machine learning. You won't see any difference between the normal mouse and the abnormal mouse, because that's our second stage work. And today, we only talk about how to use the AI and machine learning to identify mouse behaviors, normal mouse behavior. And in the second stage, which we already finished most of them, now it's writing up our publication, we actually identify the difference between the Parkinson's disease mouse and the normal mouse. Okay? So, proposed approach. I'm sure that most of people come from the background of machine learning, isn't it? And probably you like this better than the before. And just before we made the proposal to the system we produce, we have to make a little bit of announcement. Okay, the announcement is related to the difficulty and whether or not we can achieve the system target. And we also know, and if we recruit the people to monitor the change of the mouse behavior, it's impossible, because then you have to ask someone to sit in front of the mouse cage for a number of hours, and the guy, they cannot get away with it, and then he or she has to sit there for hours, make a recording of what the mouse behaviors, and then compare these behaviors before the mouse taking the drug or taking the medicine, or after the medicine has been taken, right? So, and if we get rid of this cost and time and reproducibility, then we will have to say we need to design something which working instead of the human. Okay, that's why today we talk about AI and machine learning. And the challenges ahead, if I design one single camera system, then we will see the challenges. Okay, now remember, we talk about one single camera system. And later on I can mention the multiple camera system, but that one is related to the stage 2 work, which will not be reviewed today. Okay? So what challenges we have here? And if I apply the single camera system to monitor this mouse and identify the mouse behavior, then the single camera's direction would be just facing inward. Okay? Then we see these two behaviors, they're quite confusing. The left-hand side is called drinking behaviors. The right-hand side is called eating the behaviors. Okay, because in this chamber, in this mouse cage, we have the one chamber called drinking chamber, and then there's a food chamber. They both sitting in the same place, and unless the mouse has to stretch his body, otherwise you can't recognize that he actually taking the two different behaviors. Yeah, and the left-hand side try to reach the tube of the drink, and the right-hand side try to reach the eating chamber. Okay, and this is the outcome of the single camera. Let's talk about a single camera case now. And this is another challenge here. And the left-hand side is called a groom. The groom means that the mouse has to clean his body every single day. Okay. The right-hand side is called rest and behaviors. And because we are using the one single camera, then when the mouse turn around and facing towards the wall, then we can't see what's going on the front body of the mouse, right? And just because we mentioned this grooming, I'd like to share a story with you. And my PhD student, and he want to do the multiple mice behavior monitoring. Okay, he want to do the multiple mice behavior, and then he thinking about such the scenario. And if I can make this 2 or 3 different mice got a different color, then would that be easier for the camera system to identify individual mice, right? So he used the paint to paint the mouse. For example, the one mouse A, I got the red color, and then the mouse B, I got a green color. Mouse C, I got the blue color, so on and so forth. And after my PhD students paint individual mice, and then the mice immediately bites all the colorfuls the feather. Just to bite all the things off. That means that these mice is really self-esteemed. They know how to respect themselves. They know how to keep themselves clean from this external painting. Yeah. So that's a good story for sharing. Okay. And so that's about the grooming. And this is a working prototype we designed 1 year ago. Okay, 1 year ago. You probably chased me. Joe, you're a nasty boy. You got a 1 year ago system and you bring up here to fool us. Well, I have to let you know this basic system before I can share with you a more challenging system or more intelligent system in a later stage, right? But as soon as you understand this basic system, I'm sure that later on, the more intelligent system, it becomes fairly easy to you, almost like the transparent to you, okay? So what we do for this basic system, we working with the system with the HMM. For the people who doesn't know what is the HMM, which HMM refers to Hidden Markov Model, right? And the reason why we use the Hidden Markov Model because Hidden Markov Model has been used for the human behaviors monitoring for ages. I think it's more than 20 years. And it's consistent and working well, and the people enjoy working with the HMM system. And we got this HMM system working. Then for this HMM system, we can't directly apply the HMM system, standard one, to the mouse behaviors monitoring. Why? Because the mouse is completely from the human being. What is the difference? Human, we got a long leg and a long arm. Yeah? But the mouse is a different, completely different. Small head, smaller legs, smaller arm as well. We don't call them the arm or leg, we call them the claw, okay? So the whole body of the mouse is really soft. It's non-rigid. It's non-rigid. It's not rigid motion like a human being, okay? So you can't simply just apply the HMM from the human body to the mouse. So we have to develop further. Okay, so what we do is for the HMM system, we targeted the 2 probability. This is the 2 parameters of each HMM system. One is called the transitions of probability. The other one is called the emissions of probability. Okay, these are two parameters used by the HMM. Then we use a lot of things here, complicates the components here to help the estimate the emissions of probability and the transmissions of probability. How we do that? We use deep learning. You probably say, oh, Joe, are you a fan of the deep learning? Well, and we work on the deep learning. We found that the deep learning is really help us to make the systems, the performance better. It's not because that we fancy the deep learning or we are follow the trend. It's not like that. It's because deep learning really help us to improve the performance. Okay. So how does the deep learning work? And suppose we have the video coming in, then we chop these videos into the frame by frame, and then we send out into the next component. The components are separate into the two channels. The left, let's talk about the left side channel. We create the interest points okay, and then after that we create this interest point, then we send into what we call this bag of words, another fancy name, okay, and then by producing this bag of words, we're using the GMN, Gaussian mixture model, rather than the k-means. Okay, and then we put into the feature vector, because the feature vector can allow you to make the faster computation and also get rid of some redundancy. Okay, on the right hand side of the channel, we use the frame differencing, and some people call this a background subtraction. Okay, and then later on we again produce the back of words and then send into the feature vector. As you can see, we have the left-hand side channel and the right-hand side channel. Combine these two channels signals or measurements into the same feature vector, put into the same vector, okay, and then send into that one deep learning. Well, here when I said it deep learning, actually it's not deep learning. It's kind of, later on I give you more details. And this deep learning is called segment aggregated network. Only got the total network only got the 7 layers. It's not deep at all. It's not deep at all. And this deep learning architecture allows us to produce a probability for this emissions probability of the HMM. Okay? So that's something, the general idea I have here. And later on I give you the more details one by one. Okay? On the right hand side, as you can see, for this feature extraction, we call this 3 layers as the unsupervised layers. And for the deep learning one, we call the supervised layer, including the 4 layers. Okay. In total, we have the 7 layers, but the performance is marvelous. And we compare our system against those 10 or 20 layers on deep learning architecture. We outperform them. I'll give you a bit more details later on. Okay, stage 1, the detection of an interest point. And what we have is, we use the background subtraction to extract the mouse areas. Yeah, and then we apply the HOG detection. This is the features. Okay, and then the red color basically just the HOG and interest point. Hopefully we allow these red points that are falling on the mouse body. However, as you can see, some of the red dots is not falling on the mouse body, it's falling on the background. Why? It's because when we extract the mouse and we include the background as well. Yeah? When I talk about the background, that means that either the grounds or the walls and so on, the chambers. Okay? So, once we get this interest point, then we want to make this interest point as a 3D volume. The 3D volume is including the spatial and temporal. What that means is, if you look at the image is the 2D, X, Y, right? And then we want to consider these images in terms of a short segment. It's a short video. So that's related to the temporal information. So if you calculate, this is a 2D image, is a 2D information, plus the 1D temporal information, the 2D plus the 1D, that's a 3D. It's a fake 3D, it's not real 3D, right? So this is a 3D information. And for this 3D information, how to produce the 2D images, so we use Gaussian smoothing to extract what we call the significant point. And along this time frame, we use Gabor's filtering to extract something, and which is appearing abnormal or unusual against the rest of the video. Okay. So the stage 2, we use contextual and appearance features. And first we talk about the contextual feature. Here, when we say something about a contextual feature, that means the positions, the information, positions. The reason why we talk about position is because when the mouse is running around in the mouse cage, we want to know which position the mouse actually stand. Nearby the food chamber or nearby the drinks tube. Okay. So how to calculate this contextual feature? And we have to calculate the two positions. One is called absolute position. The other one is a relative position. Absolute position means the 2D coordinates of each interest point. The relative position means, suppose we have the segments, 1 second segments, 25 frames. We calculate the average position of each interest point along these 25 frames. Yep. So that's called a relative position. This relative position, it can be used to measure the dynamics of this mouse, particularly this interest point, and moving around in the temporal domain. Okay. And the other one is called appearance features. And obviously this is quite straightforward. And we apply this brightness gradients along the 3D axis, x, y, in 2D, and then the time frame as well. And then we create this and what we call the 3D the cuboid. It's a 2D plus 1D. Okay. And then we make it into a vector. The reason why we do the vector rather than the matrix form is because for the faster calculation. Okay. And then, in order to eliminate the noise and retain the key information, we apply the PCA. Assuming you have a number of the interest point, 1,000 interest point, and plus the 3D information for each interest point, and then you have a huge number of the elements. To reduce the noise and reduce the redundancy of the information, we apply the PCA. But help yourself if you want to apply the others, dimensionality reduction method. It's fine, okay? And the next one is called backwards. And these are two images to show you what is the backwards exactly looks like. And the left-hand side is referring to the readings, the visual word, visual features. The right-hand side refer to the eatings and behaviors, the visual features. And as you can see, we use this to backwards to indicate the two different behaviors. This is just a representation of backwards, quite standard one. Okay. And this one is going to show you after we want to do something about the backwards. As I said before, we apply the GMN to clustering individual words rather than using the k-means. The reason why we do that is because then, as you can see, these two illustrations to show you the right-hand side Gaussian mixture model allow us to separate the 5 different clusters. But this k-means then is going to mix up to something here. Okay, this is a heuristics result. You may argue with me, oh Joe, I don't like you and I don't believe you. You said the GMN perform better than k-means, but in my case, k-means performs better. That's fine. If you think the k-means works, then carry on. You carry your way. Okay. And then afterwards, that's why we argue that GMN here is a better choice, but it's application driven. And in the stage 4, we do this feature encoding the feature vector. And as I said before, we try to put on everything into the vector form, and we use the feature vectors as a representation. The reason why we do this feature vector is that in the last few years, well, maybe 5 years ago, and the the community has spent a lot of time on these feature vectors and how to form the feature vector, how to use the feature vector in order to improve the performance of any classification system. Okay, so here we do take the opinions from the community, and then we apply this feature vector again. And although the argument says that the feature vector leverage the GMN as the dictionary, blah blah blah, and I think that it's because we use this feature vector in order to improve the performance of the system. Okay, because we put everything into the vector, we need to use something to represent the vector. Feature vector is one of them. Okay. Okay, this is what we call the segments, the features, the vectors. That means that before we put the features into the deep learning architecture, and we want to know whether or not this feature is quite representative. Okay, so I list 3 different behaviors here, and the first one is called grooming. The second one is heading. The heading means that they try to reach something, okay, stand out. And then there's the eating. 3 different behaviors. And what we do is we take the 3D cube, the feature 3D cube into account, and then after the 3D cube, we formulate this feature vector. For this feature vector, we have 9 vectors coming together. And we don't combine all the 9 vectors together. In fact, some people in the community, they combine all the features into the one single vector. But in our case, we don't. We keep the feature vector individually. In fact, we keep the 9 feature vectors here. And the reason why we do that, I'll show you a little bit why we do that. And for example, if you compare these 3 vector 1 for 3 behaviors, you would know that these 2 vectors look similar, right? But this is different. Okay, and if you come to this another example here is this one and this one, vector 7, you would know, okay, this one looks similar to this one, but it's different from this one. That means that you have a lot of options to identify the difference between the behaviors. If you look at these 9 different feature vectors, right? So that's why we separate into this 9 different vectors here. Okay, eventually, that's the stage 5. We come in to talk about is the deep learning architecture. Okay, the architecture looks like this. We have the features and extractions, the layer, as I mentioned before, 3 layers for the feature extraction, and then the 4 layers for architecture, for the deep learning architecture. And here, I have to remind you, this is not deep learning architecture, it's a light architecture. Okay, so what we include here, we have the projection, the matrix layer, we have the hidden layers, we also have the softmax layer. And afterwards, when we combine all the results, because each layer is going to produce the probability, and then we aggregate this result together, and using some simple Bayesian rules. You probably ask me, how can I do this Bayesian rules? And in order to combine all the measurement into the one single value and send it into the HMM. Okay, and later on, basically just you combine everything into the exponential function. That's the tricks. Okay, and then send into this HMM for the emission probability. Result and system demo. And this is one single table we used for our publication. And in this tables, we compare our system against the 2 existing systems. They all use the deep learning. For example, the paper published in 2013 by Inri and on the IJCV, and the other paper is published on the CVPR 2015, and both the systems, and one is called IDT, one is called TDD. Okay, the systems, and one is with 10 layers, the other one is more than 20 layers. Okay, deep learning architecture. So as you can see, our systems always performs slightly better. I'm not arguing there's a huge difference, a huge improvement. It's slightly better. That means our 7 layers, the system perform comparably against these established systems. That's our argument. It's fair, isn't it? Okay, and we also compare our system against the two marvelous, a great job. One is called a dollar system. This guy published his paper, and this guy from MIT, and we got his database as well from online system. And then he used linear SVM. He can achieve the mouse behaviors classification result as 80%, 81%. And he publishes works in a very good journal, top journal. Okay, and the other guy is called JHuang, also from the MIT. He used the linear SVM, produced 93%, and published this paper on Nature's one of the Nature's journal. Okay, so all in all, I can say that our system performance is not that bad. Okay. So this is a movie demo, and we use our system to automatically annotate the mouse and behaviors. Okay, so at the moment the mouse is resting, later on the heading and do something on, well, almost, I think we can annotate around 8 different behaviors. Okay, this movie is about 1.5 hours. We only take out some of them and show here. And entirely we have the 80% accuracy for this whole movie. Okay, and you probably ask me why we only got 80%. Why not make it 90 or 95%? Well, we're working on this one, but we try to use multiple camera system to improve our system performance. Okay, in fact, we already finished the design and try to push into the publication stage. Okay. So, summary. What message you can take home today? I'm sure that you can spend the time here and listening to Joe, the blah blah blah, and then Joe's main message is an HMM plus the sun. This approach, this combination, can allow the people to improve the performance of the mouse behavior classification. And then the online and ongoing work, we now using the cameras networks. We actually applied 4 cameras. 3 cameras around the mouse cage, yep. And then 1 camera, the final one, the final camera sitting on top of this mouse cage, look down. Okay, so 4 cameras that work together in order to give the clear shot of the mouse. Doesn't matter it's a 1 mouse or a multiple mice. We're actually now working on 1, 2, 3 mice cases here. Okay. And then we're going to extend the system there for the recognition of the compressed behaviors. We are particularly interested to the interaction of normal mice and the Parkinson disease mice. Why? We want to know when Joe is talking to the audience like that, and how the 1 mouse talking to the group of mice, or multiple mice that talk to the different mice. We are interested to that scenario. So we are actually working on that cases now. So hopefully if you're interested enough, then feel free to join our discussion. Okay? I think then, yeah, this is the end of the acknowledgements. And this is my team, and we worked together in the last year, PhD students, and my Xbox in Queen's Belfast, my colleagues in Queen's Belfast in biological sciences. Okay, and then this project was supported by EPS Science First Grant, and now we almost in the final stage, accepted by the TIP journal. Okay, so thank you very much.